Enough time's passed, so I think we are finally safe to rank every single boss from Elden Ring Night Rain. And no, I don't mean the reused asset bosses all throughout the world, I mean the Nightlord bosses. So we have 3 different factors we're just going to kind of look into and consider for each boss fight. The first of which is the difficulty of the fight, the second of which is the boss itself and his moveset, and the third of which is the most subjective of the 3, is going to be aura/vibe. And I did kind of jot a couple things down that would maybe constitute the aura or the vibe of it. That's going to be the colors in the battle, going to be the OST of the battle, and just how the fight progresses, how many power-ups he has, and how it looks. So those are the factors we're going to weigh out for this list. So now let's get to the tier list. Alright guys, so as you can see, we have the tier list here. S being a perfect boss fight, I wouldn't change a thing about it. With D just being a bad boss fight, and with there not being anything I wouldn't change. But at this point, tier lists are nothing new, so that's pretty self-explanatory. So let's just get started ranking these bosses. We're going to start off with literally nobody's favorite dragon, Fissure of the Fog, Caligo, Miasma of Night. And when I say there's absolutely nothing special about this boss fight, there is absolutely nothing special about this boss fight. The boss design is boring, the move design is boring. And as far as difficulty goes, this boss is just a normal reskinned asset from Dark Souls or Elden Ring. It is a normal ancient dragon fight. We have fought this same battle 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times throughout the series. It is literally nothing special. And let's just go back to difficulty, because I just want to say this boss fight is difficult in literally the worst way. He flies all over the arena, constantly changing position, and spams AoE attacks when doing so. It's a slow fight, so whenever you're fighting him, you're gonna really want to make sure you have some ranged attackers, whether you have a Recluse or an Iron Eye on your team. You definitely need some range support, because otherwise I don't think you really will be able to get many hits in on his physical body with a melee weapon. There is only one good thing I can say about this boss fight, and that during its phase transition, when you get it to half health, he does do this pretty awesome, it's like an ice ceiling attack. And so the ceiling, the ceiling above you actually becomes ice, and then it comes down and expands. That's cool, but that's about it. The next Nightlord we're going to be ranking on this list is going to be the Sentient Pest, or Gnoster, Wisdom of Night. And I'm thankful that we don't have to put another boss in the D tier. Thankfully, he makes the C tier, or I guess they, because there's 2 of them. But yeah, so that kind of takes us into the difficult part of this fight. What adds the difficulty to this fight is the fact that there are 2 enemies, one that's flying overhead and uses ranged magic attacks, and one that's on the ground just kind of charging and doing shit at you the whole time. You have to manage 2 enemies, and that can be a little difficult. So to talk about the boss design, I'll actually start with the good here. The good thing is, number 1, the little guy who kind of runs around on the ground and charges at you. I don't remember seeing him in any other past game. I think that is an original thing that they made for this. And also, the reused asset is the flying around guy. That's actually a Moonlight Butterfly from Dark Souls. We've seen this boss. I mean, you see him in literally maybe the first hour or 2 of Dark Souls 1. Moonlight Butterflies are cool, so although that is reused, I'm actually okay with that. Now, as far as the moves that they use go, there's not too much special about that. The Moonlight Butterfly maintains a very similar moveset to what it had in Dark Souls. And the guy who charges around on the ground, he doesn't really do much special. He just kind of runs at you and hits you with his head, and maybe chomps on you. When you get them to 50% health, they actually do this thing where the butterfly will come down and then go onto the back of the scorpion, and that's cool. They let off some poison effect, and it does add some stake to the boss fight. Just your typical 50% health transition. Now, I didn't talk about aura or the vibe of the fight for Fissure of the Fog, because unfortunately, whatever aura was there has just been used so many times that it's just lost its charm, so I didn't even want to talk about it, but we'll talk about it for Sentient Pest, because there is something there. The Moonlight Butterfly is a really cool enemy. It's very colorful, uses colorful magical attacks, and is just overall kind of a majestic enemy. So I do want to say that the aura kind of carried this boss a little bit, and I guess the fact that the reused asset I like. But overall, this boss is not that difficult. is cool, but nothing that you're gonna write home about. That's why we have him right here in C tier. So now we're gonna move the third of what I consider the 3 boof bosses in this game onto the list. None other than Augur, Maris, Fathom of Night. Well, I'm gonna put him right here because I actually have him above Sentient Pest in my head. So as far as the difficulty of this boss fight feels more like a joke than anything. The enemy itself is original assets and has a lot of cool aspects about it, don't get me wrong. I think it's kind of a jellyfish type deal, flying around, maybe similar to a Man-O-War jellyfish, who knows. But this boss is more gimmicky than anything. He constantly is flying around the arena, constantly changing location, and then he just spits bubbles or little jellyfish at you. This boss, you really need ranged attackers. You're gonna have a really hard and long, you're gonna have a really difficult time if you do not have ranged attacker. The boss fight is just going to take longer than it needs to be, but regardless, I don't think there's much interesting about this boss. I think its color scheme, the idea that it throws these little bubble jellyfish things at you are kind of cool. It's original, so we haven't seen that before. It's at least not reused assets, but I just don't think there's much special about this boss. And let me just specify, the originality of this boss is what carries it above the other two. None of the bosses I've ranked thus far do I consider anything too special, and other than the things I already said, there's not much else to say about Augur. Now for the first boss on this list that I'm actually excited to talk about is going to be Gladius, the Beast of Night. I'm going to move him on up into B tier here. He's our first B tier boss. This was the boss that we saw a lot of gameplay of leading up to the release of the game, and actually whenever you play the game, you have to beat Gladius in order to unlock the other Nightlords to be able to fight. So I guess this is more of a rite of passage boss than anything, but nonetheless I think they're really cool and have a lot of cool things about them. Number 1, the difficulty. This boss fight isn't incredibly difficult, but as the first boss you fight in Night Rain, it feels a lot more difficult than it might really be. He just kind of jumps around, bites at you, shoots some fireballs at you, and one cool thing, he has this chain that he whips around and it's kind of a ranged attack. It's actually kind of cool. Another thing is he actually will split into 3 individual dogs, so the 3-headed dog will split into 3 individual dogs and they'll all charge at you and try to fight you. That's a really badass mechanic we haven't seen before, so I can really appreciate that. I think it implemented quite well also. And I can really appreciate the the fiery hell aura the arena kind of has. The arena is the same for every boss fight, but this one just has its own original touches on it, so I can appreciate that. Overall, this is a great rite of passage boss. It definitely gives you a little taste of what Night Rain is all about, and it shows you a lot of good aspects, and it doesn't really lead with the bad ones. So for this being a mandatory boss you have to fight and beat to even progress to fight the other Nightlords, I can appreciate him as a boss fight, so I think he's right where he should be, right on B tier, right in the middle of this whole deal. So now we're officially in the second half of this list, so with that being said, we'll start off with Fulghor, Champion of Nightglow. We're going to put him here in the B, well, he's going to be above him, so he's in the B plus tier, what I consider. Fulghor is a really cool designed boss. He's actually designed as a centaur, and his moveset looks a lot similar to maybe a tree sentinel moveset or just any horseback riding warrior moveset we've seen in Elden Ring. I guess it's more of a hybrid moveset. There are some new moves, but a lot of them look very similar or in essence of those moves we've already seen. Whenever you get him down to 50% health, he actually does this really badass thing where his like one arm grows out, mutates, and becomes this black like goopy type arm. It's really cool, and then from that point on he kind of spews this like purple blackish sludge, and that's really cool. He has this charging AoE attack that is very potent if it were to hit you, and overall the vibes and aura in the second half of the fight are just all there. The OST is on point, and this is the pinnacle of what I consider to be a good boss fight. Every area from the difficulty to the boss design and the move design to just the aura about the boss himself is all there. None of it's lacking, but let's just say none of it is really thrilling. So I would say Fulghor is what I consider the first of the really good bosses from this game. The next 3 bosses I had an incredibly fun time playing, defeating, and just fighting in general. So the first is going to be Gaping Jaw, and he's going to be the first boss we're going to put in the A tier. This is a great boss fight, plain and simple. This boss is a reskin, or maybe at least the spiritual successor of the Gaping Demon from Dark Souls 1. However, it is not just a reskin, it is very much added and improved to. Whenever you get this boss down to half health, he has an insane phase transition. I mean, the entire arena just lights up in gravity magic, and it's crazy. Then the boss himself just actually gets this like purple marbling that just kind of goes through him, like it's like pumping through his veins. It's really cool. This boss is just kind of your typical run head first at you type deal, but mainly it's because he's got these gaping jaws that he's got to swallow you up in to do anything. It's interesting that it's a dragon with his head turned sideways, nothing like Fissure of the Fog where it's just nothing but boring. And yeah, I feel really good with where I have Gaping Jaw here on the list because I just felt that this boss fight was really fun. It was a good time, and overall, I'm pretty confident that anybody who's played it probably enjoyed it as well. So as you can see, we only have 2 more bosses left to put on the ranking. I think the order at which I put these bosses on is going to surprise you guys. So the next boss we're going to move on to the list is none other than himself, Nightlord Heolstar, the Nightlord. This is your typical guy with a sword boss fight that we've all grown to love in the Dark Souls series. He reminds me so much of Pontiff Sulyvane from Dark Souls 3. But with that being said, this fight is absolute cinema. I think it's really cool how when you approach him in the beginning of the fight, he's dragging his sword on the ground and you can hear that sound effect. You get that boss down to minimum health, and then just out comes this darkness. And then before you know it, you have this crazy night sky appearance in front of you and just this badass guy with 2 swords. The darkness affinity and the theme of night in this battle is just amazing. I mean, this boss fight is what you look for in any boss fight in Dark Souls or Elden Ring. It's amazing. One interesting thing to talk about, I know it has been confirmed that like canonically this isn't the case and it's not possible, but I think it's a really cool thing to think about. A lot of people have said that this boss looks like this is what Ranni's consort became in that timeline, in that ending. So it's just cool to think about if that happened. That could have been what was standing before us, or that could have been what our Tarnished became years down the line. So it's really cool to think about. But guys, this boss fight is just amazing in every aspect, from his move design, from the way he just goes up in the air all dramatically, the arena changes colors, and he does these crazy nuke attacks. There's like 3 different ones he can do. Overall, it's just a badass fight, guys, and it was definitely an amazing last boss to fight in this game. I think he's truly deserving of the title of Nightlord. So I don't know if you guys are going to like or dislike this ranking, but I'm actually going to put Libra on the list. Libra, Creature of Night. He's going to go above the Nightlord. Yeah, let's move him into his respective spot. No, yeah, there we go. Perfect. So Libra, Creature of Night, actually is a boss that explores a new mechanic for Elden Ring and Dark Souls. Actually, whenever you drop into the boss arena, you can go up to the boss and you can make a deal with them. There's a number of many different deals. I'm going to try to find a list of all the different deals, and I'm theoretically going to put it on screen right now so you guys can see, but every deal carries a risk and a reward involved with it. It's actually kind of a cool concept. And that's just before the boss fight itself even starts. Initially, we saw some gameplay of this boss whenever the gameplay footage trailer dropped or whatever, and he was pretty cool. I actually originally thought he was going to be more like a basilisk from Dark Souls, but boy, I could not have been more wrong about that. Something I recently saw on formerly Twitter is that this boss just has the most cursed design I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm going to put the pictures up here on screen, but that whole pattern you see across his chest, that's not actually clothing. Those are just really fucked up piercings all over his body. And that little flap that's hanging down between his legs that kind of looks like a loincloth, that's not a separate piece of clothing, that's part of his skin. And then what you think over here is on his ears are big eyeballs. Actually, whenever you take a closer look in at his snout, he just has eyes right on the side of his face. It's just a really fucked up and weird boss design, but nonetheless it's badass. The way this boss fight progresses as well is very cool. There's actually more like a 3-phase or 3 power-up thing. So 2 separate times throughout the boss fight, he'll actually go into this like meditating state inside this little golden ball. And whenever he hatches out of it, the first time he hatches out of it, he kind of has this red aura and glow around him and kind of also like marbled throughout his character design. And then he'll go into it again later in the boss fight, and then he'll hatch out of it and he'll have more of a golden design and hue to him. It's really cool. It adds more to the boss fight, and each time he comes out of these little cocoon things, he's a little more aggressive and he has a different ability. He's a little stronger. This boss is the perfect hybrid between close range melee attack but also AoE and also ranged attacks. He's got all of them right on standby, and man, if you're caught sleeping at the wheel, he's gonna let you know and you're gonna get punished. But overall, I think the Frenzy Flame affinity he has is cool. I'm a big fan of the Frenzy Flame from Elden Ring, so I'm never going to diss it. I think it's always a cool addition to a boss fight. But overall, guys, this boss is just perfect. Everything about it is perfect. And the new mechanics they tried out with the wheeling and dealing before the boss fight actually worked out really good, and I think it's a really cool mechanic, and I want to see how they use it in the future in future boss fights. But alright guys, that was our tier list. So what'd you agree with, what'd you disagree with, what would you move around in my list, and let me know in the comments. Roast me, I don't care, roast my ranking. I want to know what you guys think. I hope I did a good job explaining, and I hope if you made it this far that it was pretty entertaining, and thank you guys so much for watching. So if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that follow and subscribe button, and we'll catch you here on the next one. So have a good one guys, see you later.